When a loved one commits suicide, the people left behind face grieving, unanswered questions, and oftentimes guilt. Here to share how they learn to cope and even help others, please welcome Hadi and Tony Binion. It's good to have you both here. Let me set up these situations, and pardon me for being so blunt, but this is what happened. Brandon, your best friend Jesse killed himself when you were all in college, and Tony, your younger brother Jordan, took his life at 17. You were 21 at the time?
Yes.
So your stories are very different in terms of who you lost, how it happened, but I imagine a lot of the emotions are the same. Can you describe to me the aftermath?
It's something you just can never prepare yourself for. You don't think you're going to get a call from your parents that your brother has died by taking his own life, so there's no way to prepare for it, and it's unlike anything I've ever experienced before. But you get through it, you do.
How long ago did this happen?
This is going on 6 years now.
On 6 years. And how long would you say the shock period was?
Ooh, that shock period, I mean, it still shocks me to this day when I see pictures of my brother, and I just can't imagine that he's not here with me. He was my best friend. And so the shock never really goes away, but there's ways to help yourself grieve.
We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Tony, tell me about your immediate aftermath.
Brandon,
excuse me, I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, I was telling Tony actually that it doesn't get any easier to talk about. You think it should and you hope it will, but if you want to be real with yourself and to be able to talk about this in a way that does justice to who you lost, it doesn't get easier, and it doesn't necessarily have to. You're paying respect to somebody that you lost in a tough way.
And you kind of learn to cope with what that is that you're feeling, but I think you've hit on something that we all sort of struggle with. We want to believe that there's something called closure, and sometimes that doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't.
How have you found a way to understand this and put this someplace in your life where you could cope and live with it?
I don't know if I have a direct answer for that. I've tried different ways. Immediately after it happened, I was lucky to have an advisor who came to me and came to my rescue, essentially. And we talked about what happened, and people wanted to help. People said, hey, we're really sorry for what happened. Is there anything that we can do at the University of Washington to make a difference?
Right.
And one of the gaps that I saw when this happened was there weren't enough resources, or at least they weren't talked about. And the way that they were talked about maybe wasn't the best way that we could have promoted them. So a group of us, we came together and we wanted to make a difference. And so we created this mental health summit that was specifically targeted for Asians and Pacific Islanders to raise awareness.
And why did you do that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, there's something that we talked about earlier, that these issues affect people differently. And the ways that we talk about them need to be different also. If someone speaks a different language, you kind of accommodate that by speaking their language. But culturally, we all have a different culture as well. And we need to address mental health in a culturally relevant way. So when I talk about Asians, Pacific Islanders, we have a different history than some people when it comes to mental health and suicide. The ways that our treatments need to be designed is for us. It can't be this universal framework. It's not going to work for everybody.
That's really interesting. And even the way you deal with coping and healing, that has to be appropriate to the way you've grown up and what you, and you're nodding your head as well, so you understand that cultural part as well. Tell us more.
Absolutely. I was lucky to have a strong family support around me after my brother passed, and we actually started a nonprofit called the Jordan Bennion Project because we saw a need for education in high schools to start a conversation about mental illness, about suicide, and make it more available for everyone, and that it's normal to have a mental illness. It's something that we can talk about. And so we started this project, and so we go out to local high schools and educate local high school students on mental illness, which has a direct correlation with suicide. The current statistic that UW put out is 90% of people that either attempt or commit suicide have a diagnosable, but more importantly, treatable mental illness.
If you could change something about the way we talk about this or the way we approach this problem, what would it be?
It would be that it is a medical condition just like anything else. If you have cancer, if you have diabetes, you have to get help. You have to be medicated to stay healthy. Just same thing with mental illness. It's a chemical imbalance of the brain that needs to be balanced with medications and therapies and help and support.
You lost a brother, you lost a friend, so these are differing circumstances. How did this change the dynamic of your family?
I mean, it's a big blow to your family, especially one as close as us. We did everything together. So it definitely was a big blow. But it, at the end, brought us, I think, even closer than ever before, because we had to be there for each other, to support each other, because nobody could understand our pain and our hurt more than ourselves and each other.
Right.
So I think it really brought us really, really close.
Did you suffer those feelings of guilt or why am I here or any of that?
Absolutely, and those, I still suffer from those. Just how could I have helped? We were best friends. Why didn't he tell me?
Right.
Why did he not say he was suffering? Those things are always there, but we can't live that way. We can't live our whole life that way. We have to realize that there's other ways that we can grieve.
Can go forward. And Brandon, even though it's a friend and not a relative, I didn't mean to diminish the impact on you, because it's the same kind of world-shattering event.
Yeah, and I felt like he was one of my brothers as well. One of my first friends that I made in college. And it definitely felt like a blow that was hard to recover from as a group of friends. And we heard some things, excuse me, from friends, from family that were pretty insensitive, like that are religious, going to hell, or their spirit will never be at rest. And those things take a toll on everybody. And some people think, oh yeah, it's going to bring you guys closer in the end. But after a year, there wasn't a lot of change. If anything, people were more isolated than before. Since then, things have changed a lot. It's because we've started to have a conversation. It's because we're addressing this head on. We're not shying away from it. We're not letting stigma dictate our well-being. But if we didn't do that, I don't know where we would be right now.
Those are really good things for us to pick up on and to learn from. Thank you both for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the myths around suicide, and we're going to bust those. We'll be right back.